Hello, friends. This is L.K. Floyd with the one and only,
Dr. Bill Bennett II.
and we're here with Faith Financing as we
Woo-hoo.
continue our conversation on money talks. Today, we have a very thought-provoking conversation about getting out of debt and yes, I said it, your financial future. Well, Dr. Bennett, we're going to get right into our conversation for today. And we want to talk about debt. What is debt and
Mhm.
why is it so important to get out of debt and our financial future? Now, before we say that, I want to draw your attention to Ecclesiastes 10:19 that said, money, listen, money answers all things. Many of us, we're praying for money. We pray for God to make a way, for God to break through, when we should be taking those prayers and focus on praying for healing and deliverance and for God
Mhm.
to make a way out of no way. God gives us money to be managers of, but we pray for healing and deliverance. And it is important for us not to just pray for funds, but for us to manage and utilize and be great stewards over the things that God has given us. And so, Dr. Bennett, could you share with us a little bit about what is debt? Why is it important
Sure.
to get out of debt and our
Yeah.
financial future?
It's so important. It's so important, Dr. Floyd. There are two kinds of debts. There's good debt and there's bad debt. Now, some people just say all debt is bad. I disagree with that because when you utilize money properly, and for example, you invest in a home or you invest in a piece of investment property, that is a good debt. And a differentiation is because you're getting something that is an appreciating asset. It's going to go up in value. And so that makes it a good debt. But when you go on the other side of the ledger and now you are putting money into things or taking out a loan for things that are going to go down in value, now you've entered in the terrain of bad debt. And we want to stay out of bad debt and we want to stay in good debt. And so what we want to be able to do is ultimately be completely debt free. But as long as the item that you have as an asset is higher than the value of it if you had to pay for it outright, then you're in pretty good shape. What I mean by that, to be very clear, is that we've got to make sure if we are in consumer debt, that we get out of consumer debt so that we then free up money
Yes.
so we can get in, like John Lewis said, good trouble. We can get in what I would call good debt. Now, the Bible does give us an admonition against debt, but that kind of debt, as we know from Matthew 25, he's not talking about the kind of debt that goes down. He wants us to prosper. It's his good pleasure for us to prosper. The word of God says, Deuteronomy 8:18 says, it's the Lord that giveth you the power to gain
Yes,
wealth,
sir. The power
the
to.
power to do that. And so we do that very often by utilizing money that we have to leverage it in order to buy things that we could not pay cash for. That's a good debt. So all my life I've bought property and I've sold that property at a higher price or refinanced it to take the equity out of that. That's good debt. But all of this consumer debt, absolutely, we are against that, and you need to try your very best to get out of that kind of debt. Even if you can afford some items that are consumer debt, I would advise you from a number of perspectives to not be in that kind of debt and only have what we would call good debt. And we'll talk more about how to get out of that debt, because the truth of the matter is, for many people, we've got to help them, Dr. Floyd, get out of that bad debt so that they can then go into a position of being debt free, or in a position now to leverage their situation to go in to get some good debt, like for housing, like for real estate investments, that kind of thing.
Well, I often say that you're gifted and anointed in the area of finances and resources and stewardship, and so that's such a blessing. I know most of your life you're dedicated to helping people gain understanding and literacy of their financial uh, condition and also their financial future. what are some of the things, some of the areas that people can start with as they to credit or getting out of debt or working on their finance? What are some basic steps that one can take to improve their financial situation?
Sure, sure. So let me say this before I address that. The reason that it's important in that regard around how we handle resources, Dr. Floyd, is because so much of our life deals with money in one way or the other. And we have to face that kind of a reality. And I'm not just doing self-promotion, but I wrote this handbook, How to Be a Faithful and Successful Christian Financial Steward, because this book, the Bible, talks more about this subject of finances than any other subject except salvation. And so that means it's important to God, because that is how we get things done in the kingdom. And so we've got to realign our perspectives to deal with getting ourselves in a position to be a blessing. Now, I say that, and I'll talk about how to get out of debt in a moment. But when you free up money from being in debt, then you now are freeing up money so that you can invest. When you free up money, now you can go from the negative side of the ledger to the positive side of the ledger. But we have to make the decision that we're going to follow the word and do what I've said already, which is to become debt-free from bad debt. Now, how do we do that? That's a great question. And let's just look at a few steps to do that. You have to make a decision. Our lives are transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yes, renewing of your mind.
I will show you your future. You show me the 5 people you hang around, I'll show you your future too. But if everybody is just consumer driven, and it's nothing wrong with nice things. I have nice things. I've had any kind of thing that's nice that people love and all of that stuff, but it's never had me. And what I mean by that is I'm not in bondage to it. So if you're going to shift your paradigm and get out of debt and begin to make your money work for you and make it invest and help you to become prosperous, because the Lord does want you to prosper, then you've got to make some decisions. And the first decision is I'm going to stop going into debt immediately. Somebody say immediately. Stop going into debt immediately. You need to have, you need to do
immediately. I'm going to say it 3 times, immediately.
Yeah, I mean, you got to stop going into debt immediately. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to put this on this credit card and then be in bondage to that. From a practical perspective, it's easy to see how people can get in debt. But once you get in debt, sometimes it's so hard to get out. So you got to make a decision that I am not going, even if I could afford the payment, I'm still not going to go into debt because I can't get out of debt if I keep going into debt. And so then you have to make the second decision, which is any extra or additional income that I get, I'm going to get that and put it towards debt retirement. So I'm going to eliminate any of the credit card debt that I have, anything like that, anything. I have credit cards that I've got lines of credit of $10,000, whatever it is. I got, all kind of credit cards. I don't use them except that they enhance your credit rating. So you get up in the 700s and all of that kind of thing. But, and every now and then you may charge something on it, but you immediately pay it off. Or I will spend money and make a credit card, buy something on a credit card, but pay it off the next day just for the sake of, utilizing it. So it shows that you utilize the credit. But you have to put all additional income that you get towards getting debt retirement, because I'm telling you, it's a wonderful thing to be in a place where you are debt free.
Well, Dr. Bennett, I know you're getting into that debt and being debt free, but the debtor is in bondage to the lender a lot of times, and we understand being debt free, good debt, bad debt, but making our money work for us. A lot of times we work for money. That's what people who are listening to us today, you're saying, well, I go to job, I clock in 9 to 5. It's good to have a stable source of income, but also not only to work for money, but it's important for your money to work for you.
That's key. That's key. That's key.
See,
that's where the fun part comes in.
Money, but letting your money work for you. Could you talk about that a little bit?
I can, Dr. Floyd, because that's where the fun part comes in. But let me just digress for a moment, because sometimes people don't understand how easy it is to get into this bondage. And I say this with all due respect. I could drive any kind of car that I want to. I could go out right now and buy a new Bentley if I wanted to. But you know what I would refuse to do? I would refuse to go into debt to buy a new Cadillac, whatever you want to drive, new Mercedes, whatever. I'm asking you to refuse to go into debt in that regard. As a matter of fact, the other thing that would be important is if you have stuff that has you in debt. People don't like to hear this. They don't like to hear this. But you should sell anything, that any depreciating asset that you have that has you in debt, and watch yourself breathe a sigh of relief when you do that. Just a couple of other things that are important, because we have to be goal driven. You have to make it a goal to get out of debt, just like you have to make it a goal to save and create income so that you can then invest, so that you can buy a home, so that you can have extra money. And you need to make that a matter of budgeting, because what happens a lot of times, we have a lot of good inflow, but it goes out and then we look up and say, we don't know where our money went to. And a strategy to pay off your debt quickly is to start with the lowest one that you owe the least on, attack that, get rid of that, then go to the next one, put those monies to to the next highest debt, and eliminate that. It is a wonderful feeling when you get to the place where you are debt free.
Well, I'll say this. Sometimes it's not the fact that we don't have money or resources. Sometimes that we don't know what to do with it. A lot of times we misuse and abuse our funds. It is a shame if we have $2,000, $1,000 on our shoes, $5,000 on our back, and $1 in our pocket. So many people walk around. We want the facade. You know, when you get a building that's a facade, it looks good on the outside.
Sure.
It's shiny on the outside, but does not mean that the building or the structure is either, well, or doesn't mean that that's how it looks on the inside. And so a lot of times we mask being broke by what we wear. I was looking at reading a book called Slave Religion. And in Slave Religion, it was talking about how what we would do in, like, people, the slaves during slavery time, they would wear what is called their Sunday best. Now, they didn't have a house. They were living on, set property, but they would mask it by what they wore. That's why we, even still today, we wear our Sunday best. But some folk have taken it to the extreme that every day we try to mask it by wearing, designer clothes. Nothing wrong with wearing nice clothes, nothing wrong with, having nice cars, nothing wrong with, but it's when you have those things on the outside, but you don't have the resources on the inside. And so one of the most important thing is, as Dr. Bennett stated, is creating a savings account, diversifying your portfolio, investing in different opportunities, allowing your money to work for you. And as we continue our conversation about your financial future, we understand it is important to have ourselves together, our personal resources together, because one of the things, we can't help anybody else until we first can help ourselves. One of the things I love about getting on planes, I don't know for some of you who ride on planes, and I remember my first time getting on the plane, I didn't want to fly. I went to St. Louis, and the stewardess said something to me that has stood in my mind. It's there. She said, if you get into emergency and you see the mask coming down, first put the mask on yourself. Then after you put the mask on yourself properly, then put on the person next to you, the person in need. Well, we first have to help ourselves to be able to be financially fortified through our choices, through our decisions and what we can do, and then we can help others. Let me tell you something. What could we do in our communities? What can we do? Now, some people do get finances, don't help anybody but themselves. But what good can we do if we had more resources? Dr. Bennett always say you can do good by doing good. And so you have to be to do good. You also have to be doing good. And that's one of the reasons why we are having these conversations about Money Talks, sharing with you these opportunities for you to grow, to develop, and also to be a blessing to you and even your business, your congregation, your community, and you as an individual, because this is one of the most important subjects there is.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crucial, Dr. Floyd, because you think about it. The whole purpose of you being blessed is for you to be able to be a blessing. So the whole purpose of you increasing what you have is not just to keep it for yourself. It's so that you can be a blessing to other people, that you can advance helping somebody else. You can help pay for somebody's college. You can help be a blessing to somebody who might be in a position of struggling, but you can also help them. And so there's so many ways that you can, once you get out of debt, that you can invest and make your money work. I love the parable in Matthew 25, where Jesus has the parable of the people who he's given the different various amounts of money to, and he's trying to get them to see that he expects you to be prosperous and to be productive and to increase what he gives you. He gets very upset with the servant that he gave a certain amount to, who did nothing with it and did not make it prosper. For example, let me just give you an example. If you just had, and for some people, this might seem like a big number, but it's really not. If you saved $10,000, just one $10,000, and let's just say you got let's say ultimately you got a 20% return on that. Let's say through an investment, through stock. And of course, I could give you a list of stocks that have given that kind of a return for 10, 15, 20 years. They're very readily available. But if you did that over, let's just say the average person is 25 to 65, 40 years, that one $10,000 at a 20% return, if you never added a dime to it again, would be $15 million. Just that one $10,000 investment. And if you just were a good steward over it, over the average working lifetime, if you did that, nobody would have to worry about how they're going to make it in their, retirement years and that kind of thing. Unfortunately, there are means to be able to do that. But the first step is to get debt free and then begin to put into place the kinds of savings programs and other things that will help you. And I'm a creature of habit, and I believe that's what we have to become. Have a creature of habit of saving. I'll use this illustration and then back to you, Mr. President. If you put aside $2.73 a day, $2.73 a day, you would save $1,000 a year. And if you just put that $2.73 a day aside for that same 40-year kind of a period, you still would find yourself in a phenomenal financial position if that's all you ever did. When we think about $2.73 a day, you can barely get a soda for $2.73 a day here. It's just important to develop the habit of saving. Not talking about being a miser, not talking about not giving. I'm just talking about managing and doing just what you said, putting really yourself first in terms of that, so that then you can give and be a blessing, and then letting that be managed properly so that you aren't in bondage. You don't owe any man anything except the debt of love. And then you can invest and build wealth through the various tools that are
That
there.
is so good. That is so good. Yeah, I hope you're listening how good that is. Just putting $2 aside a day. Some people say, well, I don't have the resources, I don't have the ability, I don't have the economic thrust. Simple things. Think about this. Not only that, but for those of you, you might have a habit. For those who smoke, smoking, the Surgeon General say don't do it anyway, but you go ahead and do it. It's an expensive habit. Let's say cigarettes are $7, in DC they $10, and you take for those who have habits, a $7 carton of cigarettes would a day times 7, that's $50 a week. 7 times 7. But think about those who do 2 cartons a day. You mess up your lungs, but 2 cartons a day, that is $100 a week, which means that you can potentially spend $200 to $400 a month on something that is not helping you in the first place. And you say, well, I'm in a financial strain. It's not financial strain, is where we place our finances that strain us. Or think about eating out. Eating out. Think about when you go
We don't
in the
think of,
interim on those small things. You go get breakfast, $12. You get lunch, $15. You get dinner, then that's another $34. You probably spent $50 or $60 in eating out. Times, let's say you did it maybe 4 times a week, maybe $300 that week on eating out, and you don't realize that the mountain is growing.
yeah,
The mountain is growing. And then you spent $300 this week. You spent $300 the next week. That's $600. You probably spent between $600 and 1,000 roughly. I'm just talking about roughly, figuratively, on eating out when that money could have been allocated to your savings, your vesting, and diversifying. So this is very important. And Dr. Bennett, you hit some great, powerful thoughts. Now, the next thought we want to ask you is, why is it important to utilize our resources? There are many people who they may have houses and they may be in strain, but letting them know that through faith financing, they can not only finance, but they can refinance. Home ownership is important. You own your own home, or even refinancing or accumulating property. Why is that important? Why is real estate important? Why is taking our mindset and moving it to that direction is important?
One of the things that we see, we talk about other ethnicity groups that come to our country, and they just seem like they can just go and do great things. But many of them don't mind sacrificing to live together. They will make the sacrifice for a short-term period of time so that then they can go own their own. Very often we won't do that, and we just stay in the cycle of renting. But one of the greatest ways to create wealth in America, one of the greatest ways, I'm not talking about being an investor in Bitcoin. I have all of that. I do all of those kind of things. No problem. I've made a lot of money in that. But that's not the way I'm talking about. I'm talking about for the person who's getting started, who is renting. You got to stop renting and you got to start owning. I don't care if you have to buy a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom condo. You've just got to get in a place where your money, you're getting a return on your money and getting the benefit of appreciation. Yes, there are cycles when the market will fall, but over the long term, real estate makes more people wealthy than anything else over the long period of time. And so we have to change our thinking. You can get pre-qualified, or you can find out, if you don't yet qualify for a house, what do I need to do over the next year or next 2 years so that I can qualify for a mortgage? They'll tell you clearly, got to pay this off. And we at Faith Financing will help you to do that. That's one dimension of that, to move from renting to owning. The second part that you mentioned, Mr. President, is when people get an inheritance, making sure that they understand the vitalness of utilizing that inheritance properly. Somebody may give you a piece of property. You just gonna go sell it just like that, just to get the money in your hand. And then very often, I hate to say it, people just blow it because they start buying the lifestyle issues. But I promise you, if you get the things that appreciate in value, then those things will pay for the lifestyle and you'll never have to be in debt in that regard. And so it's important for young people or middle-aged people or anybody who inherits anything. Let us help you with the stewardship of those resources. Let us help you if you want to look at, you've got a property. Hey, maybe I can refinance it, pull some of that equity out because it's still an appreciating asset, and then I can use that to invest in something else. That's how we build wealth on top of wealth, and that's how we break the poverty cycle. And then I have to say it, but then as a part of your stewardship plan, you have to make sure you leave those resources with an estate plan in the hands of responsible people. That's the whole notion of good stewardship. You use it properly, you use the stewardship of what you were given, then you hand that over to the next generation. I was working with a client today, and she's accumulated quite a bit, but she doesn't have a estate plan. And it's exactly what we have to get done for her. Because if you leave your resources to irresponsible children, it'll be gone in no time. And it's very important for us to be good stewards from life and beyond life into eternity.
Well, those are very powerful points. Your home ownership, property development, estate planning, planning legacy, and wise men leaves an inheritance for his children and children's children. And one of the things that God notes us as wise is what we leave behind. I know a lot of people say, "Well, I'm just going to live this life. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to enjoy," and yet we leave our relatives in burden, when we go on, instead of being a blessing. You want to be a blessing and not a burden, because your name is one thing that you live, you have on beyond your day, beyond today. It's not what we have now, it's what we can leave behind. We got to change that mindset. The mindset that says, I'm leaving everything here. I don't want my children to spend all my money. I earned it, I worked for it. But you want to be able to not only have your children spend your money, but you want your grandchildren, great grandchildren. You want to leave a legacy so that you can empower that next generation. But one of the things, faith financing is so important, because one of the things, we have so many different relationships to be able to help you to maximize your potential. If you look behind me, I have a line behind me. The line may have started off, you may be like a little cat, but I'm telling you, after you encounter faith financing, you'll have that line on the inside of you, that roar. And it's nothing like being financially fortified. Nothing like being financially fortified. You may be in different financial positions. You may be in different situations. You may have a property that you say, "Hey, I'm in struggle. I'm in need. I need to refinance." You may have a reconstruction project. You may have something where you have a vision you want to develop. Well, if you have the faith, the good news today is that we have the funds. We have a conference coming up. Dr. Bennett, could you share about the Faith Financing Conference that's coming up on May the 14th, 2022?
We're so excited to be able, as a part of launching Faith Financing, to invite you to come and hear more about the company directly, so that you can see how we can be a blessing to you. Let me say this about the conference, and I hope that you will take advantage of it. It's on May 14th, as Dr. Floyd has said, at the DoubleTree, right off of the Beltway on Basil Court, right there from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. But here's what's important. I used to be the director of the Office of Religious Affairs for the great Mayor for Life, Marion Barry. And he said these words. He said, "If you don't know, you better ask somebody." And so if you're in a situation where you don't have information, please come and hear information on credit repair, on how to utilize the property that you do, or how to get prepared to own a property, or how to bring your budget into alignment, how to create wealth. We could show you multiplicity of things that you can do to enhance your financial situation, all toward the end, that God's glorified through your life, that you're able to be a blessing. And when it is an opportunity to give, you can absolutely be one of those who can step up, starting from wherever you are. You might be messed up right now, but you don't have to be messed up a year from now. You may be in student loan debt, or you may be having all of these problems and situations. Come to this conference and let us get you on the right track. Or you may, as President Floyd has said, you may own a property. Let us help you to look at how you can maximize the value in that. Our conference is designed to help you. We want you to come have breakfast on us and let us show you how we can help you, because some things we recognize people don't necessarily know what to do. And Marion Barry was right. If you don't know, you need to ask somebody. And you can ask us, and we will help you, only to be a blessing to you. At no cost to you.
I like that. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. And so we're thankful for you joining us for Money Talks, as we talk with Faith Financing. Listen, go to the web at www.faithfinancingllc.com. Let me say it one more time. It's right on the screen. www.faithfinancingllc.com.
Or give us a call. Absolutely. 202-422-6325. And we'll be glad to help you get your financial house in order. God bless you.
Don't miss it if you have the faith.
We got the funding.
All